Hello and welcome to the Pinstripe Post. My name is Ryan Sampson. Today is Monday, May 6th. The Yankees coming off a sweep of the Detroit Tigers after losing 3 out of 4 to the Baltimore Orioles. But we're here to talk all about Yankees baseball with none other than Joel Sherman. Joel, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Ryan. Yourself?
I'm doing well. The Yankees coming off a good sweep there from the Tigers. I was getting a little concerned myself after, that series against the Orioles. We'll talk about it here. Let's start off with the first pitch, though, Joel, right here. The offense for the Yankees. They did their damage against the Tigers, I will not lie. But in the Orioles series, it was few and far between. But there's something I want to ask you about this Yankees offense just to dive a little bit deeper with it. When you're looking at this team, they lead the league in double plays hit, right? Aaron Judge is one of the leading candidates for hitting in most double plays this year. It seems like, and maybe this is the feel I'm getting, I want to get your sense. They're getting men on base, but they're just not getting that timely hit, in previous series like they were in the Orioles, like in the Tigers series, but in the Orioles, they weren't getting those timely hits. What is your sense of these Yankees offense? Are we on the verge of them making that explosion and being that lethal offense we think they can be? Or is there something more to what's going on in the fact that they are struggling to get those timely hits?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to answer, Ryan. I think these things tend to even out over the course of the year. For example, they're hitting into a lot of double plays, but their ground ball rate is exactly in line with where it is from year to year. So are they just hitting ground balls at the wrong time in the wrong place? If it does, I feel like that evens out over 162 games, and some of those balls get through. The bigger issue is I would liken this. They've tried this twice now in about the last 6 years, which was team somebody with Aaron Judge to make a super duo. They tried it with Stanton after the 2017 season. And obviously, the combination of injuries to Stanton and the overall decline of his game meant that it never worked. I also think it didn't work because of the combination right-handedness and high strikeout rate. They've now tried this again with Soto and Judge, which makes a lot more sense when you think about it as lefty righty. Soto's strikeout rate is low, his walk rate is high. And this time it's been Judge who hasn't participated fully in it. Having said that, for about the last week, Judge has begun to look a lot more like Judge. I wrote about this in the Post in Monday's edition of the paper. It's online now at nypost.com, which is the Yankees had multiple encouragements over the weekend. They swept the Tigers, and then the other encouragement was that Judge began to look like Judge, and Garrett Cole got off a mound. Let's not forget, this is the 2022 AL MVP and the 2023 AL Cy Young Award winner. The Yankees basically have gotten 10 games over 500 without one, and from about as little as you could expect from the other as possible. So the question is, if Judge and Soto become a mashing machine, that carries an offense with it. Will they? Again, good signs over the weekend from Judge. And just the Yankee pitching. So before the season, before Cole's injury, I had said to you, Garrett Cole's going to have a 2.99 ERA this year. You would have went, where do I sign up for that? Well, that's the whole Yankee staff has a 2.99 ERA. Think about how remarkable that is without their best starter.
Oh, yeah.
They are really good at run prevention. Their pitching people over the last few years have done a great job with pitchers. The rise of Luis Gil should not be understated. The stuff is spectacular. He so far has shown he can carry it through 100-ish pitches. Can he carry it through 6+ months? It's an issue. Because the stuff is so good, Ryan, that if I were the Yankees, I just wouldn't be let's do the baton pass when Cole's ready to calm. Let's take Hill out of the rotation. Though he might help solve some bullpen issues. The stuff is so good. But anyway, I'm a little ahead of myself.
Yeah, you are right now. You're going ahead on my little rundown right now,
Yeah,
Joel.
we'll get back to it in a second. But anyway, if I were looking at it, I think their offense, which is about 13th in runs per game at about 4.6 or so.
Yeah.
I think that this should be an offense that, again, averages over 5 runs. And if Judge is right, I think they get there.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joel. I was there Saturday. It was awesome to see Aaron Judge, in the first inning, get a base hit. It just, for me, I know Juan Soto is going to be Juan Soto every game, which is remarkable to see. And I've been waiting for Aaron Judge to be Aaron Judge, right? For this lineup to really take off. I know you don't like listening, talking about lineup because you think that they don't really mean much. You know, the player is the player. He should be able to hit wherever he is. But that move for Verdugo, right? He goes on the paternity list to start off that Orioles series. The Yankees offense doesn't do as well. He comes back, and now against the Tigers, after a couple of games being back, the Yankees lineup has started to perform again. Verdugo was, I believe, clean up 2 out of the 3 games, right? So is there anything more to that? Is it just the balance they're looking for? Is Verdugo provide a little bit more in that cleanup spot for you hitting behind Judge?
So I think lineup construction is one of the most overrated things in the sport. Having said that, if you told me I could idealize a lineup, I would want to break up lefties and righties to create as big a problem as possible for late inning bullpen substitution by the other team. And I'd like to follow high strikeout with low strikeout. So this way, the way I always think about it is runner on third, no out. The pathway to get out of that for the other team is to strike people out. And if you go, say, Judge Stanton back to back, your chances of getting out of it, as good a hitter as Judge is better in some ways than if you were LeMahieu Verdugo back to back, or even LeMahieu Rizzo back to back, because I think those guys are going to put the ball in play. We saw again, Rizzo won a game infield in by getting the ball through because he got the ball in play with a runner on third the other day, and they won that first game against the Tigers. So I think what Verdugo does behind Judge is both things you would want, which is left-handed and low strikeouts. He has good at-bats. He's not the idealized historic cleanup hitter, but if I were just looking for how I would want to do a lineup, I would want to make it as difficult from the 6th inning on for the opposing team and as difficult as possible for the opposing team to get out of runner on third, no out.
No, I agree, Joel. I think that was shown a little bit in that Friday game, to your point, in that 9th inning. Verdugo, he just does the little things right. Laying that bunt down the third base line. It was a perfectly laid down bunt to move, him and Judge over. And then, Rizzo comes through with the hit. It's just, that was impressive to see. I think we haven't seen, and I know we keep talking about this, but I have not seen a left fielder that knows how to lay down a bunt, hit with runners in scoring position like Alex Verdugo, and he fields so well. It's just been so really refreshing to see, I would say, with Verdugo in that lineup and him at cleanup. Like you said, it seems to be working right now with the way they're stacking that, and Rizzo's hitting well too. We should mention that as well. He had a really good weekend this weekend, and we're interested to see if they're playing the Astros this week, if the Yankees offense can keep it rolling. Joel, let's move on to, that's interesting, where you get to tell us a little bit something that you saw from the Yankees this past week that had you saying, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think instead of the past week, what I find interesting is to project ahead a little bit. The Yankees won 4 games in Houston to begin this season, and that felt like a big deal because of the historic implication of that series. The Astros have essentially dominated the Yankees since knocking them out of the wild card game in 2015, and obviously knocking them out of the playoffs a few other times since then. And winning a couple of championships, and obviously pissing off the Yankees and their fan base with whatever was going on in 2017 with the sign stealing. It looks a little less impressive with some time as the Astros are sitting at 12-22 as they come back in. But considering how the Yankees organizationally feel about the Astros and how Yankee fans feel about the Astros, I don't know if the Yankees can end the Astros season over the next few days. But man, if they throw another sweep up on the Astros and Houston leaves here 12-25, that's a big difference than leaving here, say, 15-22 with some momentum that you beat a really good team on the road and you restored the kind of balance in the rivalry a little bit, losing 4 games in Houston. So I think the Yankees, when they think about pests they would like to get out of their hair and teams they would like to throw a knockout punch on, nothing's going to make up for losing in the playoffs. But if they were 7-0 against Houston before Memorial Day, and the Astros were suddenly a team we're sitting there going, are they going to trade Kyle Tucker? Then the Yankees would have delivered quite a punch before the season is 2 months old. So I'm actually looking at these 3 games coming up. And by the way, with all the problems of the Astros, and I know this will lead into the next segment. I don't want to kind of like is they still are a pretty high contact team. They get the ball in play. It's still a pretty good offense. I am curious to see Luis Gil against them on Tuesday night, plus he's facing Verlander. Like, does that mean anything to Luis Gil? I don't know. I didn't ask him that question when I was there yesterday, but I do find the series in general very interesting. I find Gil versus Verlander and the Astros on Tuesday night very interesting.
It's definitely going to be very interesting considering where Gil came off that last performance last week against the Orioles. Very impressive. Joel, I sign me up. If the Yankees can sweep the Astros and like you said, 7-0, put them sort of out of that position here before Memorial Day, as a Yankees fan, we'd be excited. I do want to ask you something that's interesting real quick, and maybe I want to get your sense here. Aaron Judge was tossed from Saturday's game. I could be honest with you. When we saw this happen, everyone in the stadium was like, wait, did they just toss Aaron Judge? Did that really just happen? And seeing the video afterwards, he did. I mean, players say that all the time. That calls bullshit, and you know it as you're walking away. These umpires, they have these hotheads, and I just don't understand. Aaron Judge is the player you don't throw out of a game. That's why people come to the ballpark to see Aaron Judge. With that being said, first Yankees captain getting tossed since Don Mattingly in 1994. Joel, that's a pretty interesting stat considering the Rangers are going on a run here in the playoffs. The Knicks are going on a run here in the playoffs. 94, the last time a Yankees captain got tossed.
Oh, stop.
Come on.
You are looking for connection where there's none. First of all, don't stereotype things where umpires are hotheads. 9 out of 10, 19 out of 20, 29 out of 30 umpires would not have tossed Aaron Judge in that situation. That was a bad moment. I always say did Aaron Judge say a magic word? Probably. But he was retreating to the dugout. The only 3 people who knew it were the catcher, the umpire, and Judge. Maybe somebody else, good, John Boy reading lips or whatever, would have been able to decipher it, and nobody would have made a big deal out of it, to your point. I always say the umpire's key job on the field is to be the adults in the room, and which means that you have to keep a level head at all time. And part of that level head is to understand that Aaron Judge historically doesn't show up umpires, and a lot of people paid money to see Aaron Judge play. And he, to me, would have had to cross a few more lines, including turning around and saying it. So I think that most umpires would not have tossed him. Having said that, the Yankees dance close to the fire all the time about bitching about calls. And look, it's part of the MO. Aaron Boone's going to get tossed 10 to 15 times a year in the constant fight. It's the Bobby Cox fight of fight every pitch, because maybe you'll turn 1 or 2 during the course of the game. But man, Juan Soto argues a lot of calls. Nestor Cortez was walking off the mound a few times yesterday. I mean, they are a team. And the problem is, if you dance close to the fire and you do this a lot, at some points you're going to get burned. And, there could be umpires that were like, I'm just kind of done with the Yankee shit. And Judge was I hate cliches, was the straw that broke the camel's back in this moment, where it was just wrong guy, wrong moment, wrong spot, all that stuff. But again, having said that, the umpires need to be the adults on the field, and he shouldn't have been tossed on Saturday.
No, he shouldn't have, especially in a 5-3 game.
You'll find as many connections not to 1994. Now you're doing about like captains that are ejected. Okay.
I'm just trying to be. Listen, Joel. I'm a Rangers fan also, and this is like I'm trying to draw connections.
We did this last week. Right?
I know.
I told you all about my '94.
I know.
Covering the Yankees when nobody gave a fuck what I was writing about. So
30 years later, man. I'm 32. I was 2 when they won the cup.
I'm reliving it.
Yeah.
I was probably at the game where Jeter was tossed. I mean,
Mattingly tossed. Yeah.
No, I was probably at the game.
All right, Joel. Let's go to Radio Rational. So we already alluded to this about Luis Gil. You wrote about it. Garrett Cole is throwing off a mound now. He's making progress, right? We're hoping maybe, mid-June, maybe. I don't know. You might have a better idea of the timeline. But when he does make his return to this rotation, which has been a strength to your point, Luis Gil is dominating. His stuff is filthy to your point. I saw Clark Schmidt on Saturday. He cannot get to that sixth inning. I don't know why. Maybe he just tries to pitch the strikeout too much. Maybe you can talk more about what Clark Schmidt provides for them. I just don't know if I'd be okay to put Luis Gil into the bullpen when Garrett Cole makes his return ultimately, if everyone else stays healthy, and say, yeah, Clark Schmidt, that fifth spot's yours, when really Luis Gil's been out pitching and outperforming you.
Yeah, so usually we do story time with Joel at the end of the episode. I'll do story time here. When Joe Torre took over as manager, this is going to make sense in a second, trust me. When Joe Torre took over as manager of the Yankees, I've told this story a few different times. He had not a great reputation. We know him as the championship manager, but like he had combined for I think the most games ever between player and manager without ever appearing in the World Series or winning a playoff game, because even the year he made it with Atlanta, they didn't win a game in the playoffs. And, like that, the back page of Clueless Joe, and what is he doing here? And he followed Buck Showalter, who had really stood out as a manager and helped transform the franchise from the joke it was in the early 90s towards what would be a dynasty under Torre later. And so, we were looking for signs of who Torre really was. And I'll tell you the first one that really stuck out for me. So the Yankees spent 96 spring training with 7 veteran starters, plus a guy who is lost to time, but they liked a lot, named Mark Hutton, an big Australian right-hander who was out of options, was like their best pitching prospect, and they wanted to see him take a shot in the rotation. So in theory, they spent all spring training with 8 starters. I'm talking Melito Perez, Scott Kamenicki, David Cohn, Dwight Gooden, Kenny Rogers, Jimmy Key. I think I probably got them all there, but it was 8 guys. And Joe Torre got questions on a daily basis, like, oh, who's going to be the 5? Who's going to be the 5? But it's a natural story. And finally, with about a week to go in spring training, maybe a little longer than that, I was alone in his office. And back then, that was the first year in Tampa. And I said, Joe, I'm just curious, how are you going to make, who's it going to be? And he said, Joel, you understand, I'll make the decision if I have to make the decision, but I'll never have to make this decision. And I said, what? And he said, I'll never have to make this decision. I've been around a long time. Guys will underperform. Guys will get hurt. And the decision will be made for me. I'm paid to make the decision if I have to, but I'm not going to make the decision before I have to, because the decision will be made for me.
Right.
Ryan, I'm here to tell you, they never had even 4 guys healthy the whole season. They ended up having to trade for David Weathers as a starting pitcher in July because, I think Perez might never have pitched that year. Kamenicki barely pitched that year. Key went on the injured list 3 times. David Cohn got an aneurysm. Dwight Gooden ran out of speed. Kenny Rogers. Mark Hutton wasn't actually any good. And they won the World Series that year, but their rotation was a mess most of the season. I forgot to mention Andy Pettitte was the one guy who made it from soup to nuts that year, and he had an elbow injury, the one that would be with him his entire career, where he had a minor tear in it, and it never kind of went all the way, but it hurt him a lot that year. He never had experienced before, and he kept pitching through it, which began to tell us something about Andy Pettitte. He pitched through it and pitched well. And that just reminds me of where we are now. Where would the Yankees sign up for? We have to make a decision on June 15th-ish when Garrett Cole comes back on which guy to take out of the rotation. The blessing of this Yankee season to date is that the 5 guys who have stepped in to replace Cole have, number one, gone round and round without them. They've only had to use Cody Petit as a doubleheader kind of fill-in guy one time, but the other 5 guys have stayed healthy. The other 5 guys have generally pitched any place from well to very well, including Clark Schmidt. And so my suggestion is they'll never make this decision. But if they have to, we are also going to get a month more of information about Luis Gil. Right now, he looks like a great sprinter. Is he a marathon man? Is he really going to go from Tommy John surgery and no innings last year? Like, whatever you think about Clark Schmidt, he made 32, 33 starts last year. And I also think that Luis Heel eventually helps them solve a power guy in the bullpen late in the year if they have to, maybe him and Clayton Beater. But if this is Luis Heel, this guy who seems to be getting a little better as they're going along, the stuff's special, Ryan. And so if this is who he is and they haven't seen any decline in physicality to get through it, I would not remove him from the rotation because he could start a game in the playoffs. The stuff wins in the strike zone. And there's just not a ton of pitchers who can do that.
Yeah. And to your point, big test coming up against the Astros, a high contact team, to your point, and it will be a good test.
Veteran lineup.
Veteran lineup. Yep. Jordan Alvarez, Altuve, they got some real hitters that can do some damage. So if he can perform well, again, like you said, just keep building on those stats and performances. It'll make the decision for Aaron Boone a little bit easier, but at the same time, if everyone keeps going round and round and we get the same performances or similar performances this next month, it could be a tough decision.
The last time we saw a young Yankee starter with this kind of stuff at this level was probably Severino in 17-18, and he nearly won Cy Young awards. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself 5 weeks into the season, but the stuff is the stuff. The question is, it's been that 5 or 6 starts. What does it look like after 10 or 12? What does it look like after 15, 18? What does it look like at 20? Just to go back to my Joe Torre point, the decision will probably be made for Aaron Boone and the Yankees. And if it's not, Aaron Boone is praying that he has to make this decision because it means his guys are healthy.
Yeah.
Right? Like they haven't had to reach down to Beater. They haven't had to reach down to Warren. They haven't had to reach down to Poteet again, except for an emergency start. And so that's part of the reasons they're 10 games over 500. Go look at where some of these other teams are, like the Astros.
No, I know. The rotation's depleted.
Yeah. I mean, it's coming back now.
Right.
They got Valdez back. I think they're getting
Javier. Yep.
Back. Ronel Blanco has pitched well. Verlander is back. I mean, that's a pretty good foursome. If they could keep it in line. I haven't given up on the Astros, not in a world of 3 wild cards and a team with a pedigree of making the ALCS the last 7 years. But the Yankees they're 10 under because their rotation has been shambles. The Yankees are 10 over because their rotation has been solid.
Absolutely.
Physically and performance-wise.
I totally agree. All right, Joel, let's move on to Hogan Analytics. We're bringing our PA, Tommy Hogan. He's going to give us a stat of this past week. What's up, Tommy?
What's up, guys? You guys mentioned the double plays to start the season. That's been a theme for this Yankees offense. So I kind of wanted to just get a little deeper into that. And they've grounded into 40 double plays this season, which leads all of baseball. When Gleyber Torres grounded into his double play Friday night in the 7th inning, they were on pace for 190 double plays this season. That would have broke the record of 174. They since then haven't grounded into a double play, so that pace is now down to 180. Aaron Judge. He has grounded into an MLB lead 10 double plays this season, on pace to shatter Jim Rice's record of 36. He's on pace for 45. So when Ryan and I saw the double play from Gleyber, 1-0 game, frustrated, obviously, watching the Yankee game, my theory that I spit out quickly was that they have overcorrected from trying to get the ball in the air so often to now trying to get on top of the ball, hit line drives, and that is in turn hit into ground balls. So I wanted to see the 10 regulars that play in the lineup, the 2 catchers and then the 9 regulars. Only half of them have a lower launch angle than last season. So that theory doesn't seem to sit and have any legitimacy to it. But, Joel, I wanted to ask you, when you see these double plays, do you just chalk it up to Aaron Judge's worst month of his career, or do you chalk it up to a bigger concern of team speed or something like that could be a concern for the Yankees in October?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if a guy like Stanton hits the ball on the ground, it's a double play. If there's a runner on first base, he'll be lucky to stay out of a triple play this year. But, part of that is also about hitting the ball hard on the ground. Guys like Judge and Stanton hit the ball hard. So if it's at somebody, it's going to be a double play. It could be Deion Sanders running if you're going to hit it that hard. And I think I mentioned it earlier, Tommy. I looked at it before the show. Their ground ball rate's at 42.8%. That's like in line with where they are every year. And to your point, it's still early enough in the season where you mentioned what the numbers were on Friday, and they went 2 games without a double play, and what the numbers are today. So my suspicion is that Aaron Judge won't break Jim Rice's record. My suspicion is the Yankees won't break any kind of either team or major league record, that this will even out, because there isn't something to the eye test or the stats yet to suggest they're doing anything but, the ground balls are coming at the wrong time, right at people. And look, again, if Stanton or Rizzo or a few of these guys, and you see the difference, right? Rizzo hit a ground ball the other day, 2 inches the other way, it's runner out at the plate, 1 out, runner on third, and you Yankee fans are sitting there going, Rizzo, he can't come up big. Instead, the ball gets through, and you go, Rizzo, we love him. So it's
accurate.
It's always just a matter of a little bit that moves things one way or the other. I don't see it, Tommy. I need another month of information for them to stay on this. My suspicion is they might go 10 games now with 2 double plays, and we're probably not talking about it all that much.
Yeah, and you mentioned Stanton, and there's an interesting stat with him. With runners in scoring positions this season, and Yes Network had this up the other day, he's 4th in all of baseball in slugging percentage with runners in scoring position, so he's getting the big hit. But with a runner on first, his numbers are dramatically low. So it's almost like it's in his head that a ground ball and there's 2 outs. Like a double play is in his head and affecting him at the plate with a runner on first. But when the runner's on second or obviously scoring position, he's got a different mentality and approach at the plate.
I think he's much more willing with guys in scoring position to go the other way.
Okay.
He's already spread out. And again, this is just eyesight. It's nothing I've asked him or the hitting people. It seems to me he spreads out even a little more and prioritizes because to him, Anthony Rizzo prioritizes contact, and he's choking up and he's shortening his swing. The ball's got to bleed through. Stanton could shorten up and still hit the ball 115 miles per hour. He's so strong. We kind of saw that the double into the right field corner the other day. To me, again, non-expert on hitting technique, etc., except for I've watched a lot of games, it really did seem he was prioritizing trying to get the ball the other way.
All right, yeah, I had to make it a little bit less this week in Hogue Analytics after horizontal break last week. I knew that was a little. I got a little overboard last week.
Yes. Well, but we could go back to it next week.
Okay.
Thank you, Tommy.
No problem.
All right, Joel. Let's wrap this all up. I wanted to ask you. You already gave us a little bit of a storybook and notebook time, but
did you like my Joe Torre story?
I did, and I do think it is prevalent. And to your point, we still have a month to go before we reach really that point of making that decision, or that decision will be made for you.
One of the things I always do try to do is tell people, like, how did you feel a month ago?
Right.
If I would have told you a month ago that this group would go round and round, you'd say, no way, right? Like the injury history to Rodon, Cortez last year. Stroman had a pretty significant 2 injuries last year. Is Clark Schmidt really going to be durable for a second straight season? Luis Gil coming off a Tommy John surgery. It's remarkable. And it is a reminder that every game is that challenge. Every week is a challenge, because 2 guys could go down this week. And we're having such a different conversation a week from now. But they're 10 over 500. And they're 10 over 500 to me for 2 reasons. One, Soto has been brilliant and carried the offense. And the run prevention has been great. And it's built around starters who have given them some length, 5-6 innings at least, so there's not blowout games. Only them and the Orioles don't have a start this year under 4 innings, right? And you see what happens. Like a guy goes an inning, you end up blowing out your bullpen. You have to designate for assignment guys or try to option guys out. You're running guys back, and your long relievers out for 3 or 4 days. And if you back that up with another bad game, your week is screwed up.
Yeah.
And the Yankees haven't had a screwed up week because of the pitching. The pitching has given them outs at a pretty high level. And I think a month ago, if I would have told you that, you would have said, come on. And it's actually been the core of their success so far.
I can't say anything else after that. I was going to ask you about the 1990 documentary. Maybe we'll revisit that in a couple weeks when the documentary does premiere, but we do want to recognize you, Joel, for how cool that was. We saw the trailer. for the Peacock documentary, the Bronx Zoo
May
series.
16th, it drops. All 3 1-hour episodes. We will maybe next week. It's still before the actual debut, right? I'm trying to figure out his hair. Yeah, we'll talk about it a little more. It was. I thought that the director DJ Caruso, who's like Hollywood director, you can look him up. Did some stuff. You know, it's out of my control, Tommy. I wrote the stories for the Post. The Post owns the stories. It got optioned into a documentary. I am a talking head on it. And I thought that I think it's well done. It revisits a time. There's a lot of Yankee fans your age that don't know that there were bleak times. But the documentary, like the series itself, was if you covered. So the 1990 Yankees, and I'll do this quick because I know we want to get out of here. The 1990 Yankees had the worst record for the organization since the first year they were named the Yankees after being the Highlanders, since the 1914 team. They were the Highlanders in 13. So they were terrible on the field. They were actually more embarrassing off the field than on the field, and they were embarrassing on the field. And what you couldn't see if you covered it every day, and I was the beat guy back then, was that underneath things were happening. The Yankees that June drafted Posada and Pettit. That July they signed a much older Latin American player than you usually sign. You usually sign Latin American players 15, 16, 17. They signed a 20-year-old. His name was Mariano Rivera. They put Buck Showalter on the major league coaching staff. Gene Michael became the GM. Brian Sabian and Bill Livesey were doing this fantastic job building up the minor league system. Bernie Williams got up to, I forget if it was AA or AAA. You couldn't, if you covered the team, this was all stuff that you couldn't recognize in real time because the team was so bad in every way it could be bad. And the documentary is about that dichotomy of how badly things can go in one realm and how great it could be going on what you don't actually see. The 1990 Yankees were as embarrassing as it could be. And by the end of the 90s, they were the team of the decade in a dynasty.
It's really cool, Joel, to see your work get recognized and for this to be coming out after this. And we can't wait to watch it, and we'll talk about it in future episodes. But once again, Joel, thank you so much for talking Yankees baseball with us on the Pinstripe Post. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, hit that like and subscribe button for more Yankees content like this. Joel, you're the man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ryan. All the best.